Welcome in to another episode of Building the Pride. I'm your host, Drew, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Mike. Mike, how are you?
It's a little chilly here. So I got my space heater on, but other than that, I'm doing fantastic. How about you? I know it's probably chilly over there, especially your pipes.
Yep, this is week 4 of not having any running water in the house, so
That's
we have
rough,
the
man.
insurance adjuster coming out tomorrow um, to take a look at it, but the heat still works. I mean, the heat's
That's good.
fine. I got it just under 70, just where I want it, but doesn't matter. I mean, if like the water doesn't work, the house, it's not a house, so it's a
True
lean-to.
story.
So
Yeah. It's yes, it's a
it's a
lean-to. I like
lean-to
that.
with Wi-Fi and electricity running into it. So
I thought you were gonna say it's a tree house, but on the ground. One of the
so
defining characteristics of not a tree house is running water, right?
it's and not being in a tree, I suppose, but
Right. Yeah.
neither my house has neither one of those. So
Yeah.
it's been pretty fun. So
Well, let's pop in news and notes around the NFL. Typically, where we start off, there's not a ton. Obviously, we'll get to the Super Bowl. That's the biggest news and note around the NFL. But we've got a new coach and we've got a quarterback who is leaving his town. You want to kind of talk about what we got there?
what coach? Kellen Moore?
Kellen Moore, yeah, Kellen
Yeah.
Moore is going to be moving in as the Saints head coach.
So this is the only guy who would go.
Yeah,
Is the scuttlebutt around Kellen Moore is that when other head coaching candidates interviewed with the Saints, they asked specifically about Mickey Loomis and whether or not he would be retained as the GM. And Gail Benson, the owner, was like, yup, because Mickey Loomis does whatever I want. We have a really super long working relationship. So Mickey Loomis is an institution as far as the New Orleans Saints are concerned. And those other people bowed out. They didn't take second interviews and they didn't go. And so, like, what New Orleans is left with, which I think this should be a major wake up call to the New Orleans Saints organization, is that they got the last guy and the only one willing to take the job under those circumstances and a first time head coach because there's only so many of these jobs. This has
yeah.
got to be one of the worst jobs, head coaching jobs in the NFL.
Can you imagine being the owner and having the discussions with your GM and like, all right, so how are the coaching interviews going? Well, we've done a few. Cool. Who's coming back for a second? Yeah, nobody wants to come here. Like,
Yeah.
how do you have that conversation with the owner, right?
Well, so I mean, like, the thing of it is, Mickey Loomis could walk into Gail Benson's office and say, Gail, I can get you whatever coach you want. You just have to fire me, which I feel is probably unlikely that he would do that. And it seems like those two have a really solid working relationship together. That's fine. I mean, my problem with Mickey Loomis has been, and I think this is also the problem that head coaching candidates are dealing with, is that he handles the salary cap very poorly and he squanders draft picks by like just trading up all the time. He had one great draft class in 2017, and they've only hit on several prospects since, and because of that, they've had to extend their 2017 class well beyond their effective NFL lives just to try and keep the
Yeah.
team competitive. And I think that a lot of sought after head coaching candidates are going to want to bring along a guy that can buy the groceries for them, or however you want to phrase it, like a guy that they want to work with, and they don't want to work with Mickey Loomis.
Yeah.
So, but they're going to give Kellen at least a couple years. We'll
Yeah.
see how long it goes.
There's an article on NFL.com about the NFL free agency and the franchises with the toughest tasks this offseason, and the Saints were on the list.
Mm.
They were an honorable mention, but last year they were $54.1 million over the cap, worst in the league. So, yeah, you mentioned cap management and how much that hamstrings teams. This is very much a problem with New Orleans. They're trying to get people off the books, but until they do, it's going to be a rough ride in New Orleans. So it's not a very popular destination. If you're going to be a coach, you're like, oh, let's go to the team that is so cap strapped and cap screwed that you're just not going to be able to get quality people for a while. So you're going to probably lose for a bit. That's not a place that you go like, sign me up, bro.
So you just mentioned that the last year the Saints were 50 something $million over the cap.
Yeah. Over the cap for the following year, for this year.
Right. Oh, for this year.
Oh, so yeah, for 2025.
Yeah, okay. So the cap is supposed to go up to $272.5 million, and they're $54 million over that number, which means before the 13th of March or the 12th of March or whenever the new league year is, they have to trim that from their roster. What's up, Michael? So, I mean, like, and this is the problem, right? This is the same problem that the Cleveland Browns are in right now with Deshaun Watson's fully guaranteed contract. It's the same problem that the Philadelphia Eagles have gotten themselves into, except of the three, the Eagles are the only ones that know how to actually manage kicking the can down the road. Yeah. So, like in Cleveland and in New Orleans, the only way that they do this is they restructure everybody and they extend out all their current deals because that's the only way that they have to generate cap relief. So, if they were smart, they would trade down a bunch in the draft and flood their roster with a bunch of rookie contracts and let some of the void years and the dead cap burn off, get out from under some of these things, take their hits, get their caps fresh, and then effectively be able to go in and rebuild their rosters in like a appropriate material way. And for whatever reason, they refuse to do it. And so they just keep perpetuating their own cycle. And when you do this, you lose guys like starters off the back end of your roster, valuable pieces, depth players.
Right. Your depth guys. Yeah. And as we know, depth is important.
It is. It's quite.
And I mean, the other thing that you're stuck with is you're stuck with people that you almost essentially have to keep because you have to extend them to fix your cap, but they're probably not the best people that you would want to have. So you're kind of stuck with lower end people just from the perspective of restructuring, right?
Yeah.
The others, so they did kind of the top six. They have the Vikings at number 6. They have the Jets at number 5. We'll talk about the Jets here in just a moment. The 49ers at 4. The Cowboys at 3 with negative 2.8 million. The Falcons 11.1 million. And the Dolphins at negative 11.6 million. So they're I love the fact that we're not on there. So that's always good, especially considering that we've just restructured. We have signed and extended a lot of people, and a lot of times that, to your point, builds up cap problems, and that's how you get on these lists. But I think Brad Holmes has done a really good job of doing what we need to do while also staying off these lists of people are going to have a rough off season.
I mean, if you're a Browns fan or a Saints fan, it should just be an off season at this point. Like,
I was shocked that the Browns weren't on here. The other honorable mention was Washington. They're going to have 28 unrestricted free agents. That's a lot.
So they do have a lot, but like per over the cap heading into the 2025 season, the Commanders have $77 million in cap space.
Yeah.
So
third most in the league right now.
Yeah.
So it's just going to be more of like an interesting, like, all right, what are we going to do? We got a lot of money, but we are losing half of our team to free agent. Well, not losing, but like over half of our team are going to be unrestricted free agents. So it's going to be a exciting time for the GM over in Washington.
And so this year, the draft, for the first time in about a decade, I think we have, as of today, everybody has their own first round pick. So there's no teams with 2 first-round picks, which means that most teams will have their allotment of 7 players that they can pick. So I mean, like, if you got to resign 25 guys, 26 guys, and you get 7, okay, it's a little easier now. But I mean, still, it's a lot. All of these rosters are going to balloon up to 90 players before too long here, and then we'll start the process of getting them cut down. But it is a lot of guys to replace. There's a bigger shakeout process in Washington right now than like, say, Detroit, for example.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I want to, Michael Portnaby says, "What's up, guys? Can't watch long, but want to say hey." If you remember correctly, Michael is an Eagles fan, so he's probably celebrating still. So congratulations, Michael, on your team's victory. Hopefully you weren't climbing light poles and whatever else nonsense was going on. But congrats to the Eagles.
In any moment of jubilation or triumph, I've never had the desire to climb anything. But I don't know how people in other cities do it, but there's a lot of it apparently. Philadelphia looked great in the Super Bowl. They look fantastic. So worthwhile.
So before we pop into the recap for that, the other news and note that was notable is Aaron Rodgers was being told that he is no longer going to be a New York Jet.
Good.
Not
He's
shocked.
Yeah.
Where do you see him going?
I don't fucking care. To be honest, I thought up until Aaron Glenn took over the job, I thought the Jets were the perfect place for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
This dysfunction heaped upon dysfunction. I think he'll probably be.
Oh, please say Minnesota.
No,
the whole Brett Favre path.
Well, I mean, I suppose it's going to come down. I think he'll be the last quarterback of the available quarterbacks to be signed.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking it's something like a team that's just going to need somebody there. See, I just don't see him accepting a role where he isn't the starter.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael. He's the worst. So, I mean, I suppose something like Tennessee could work out, but
yeah, they got Will Levis there right now.
Will Levis, not the stars don't shine too brightly in Nashville as far as the QB position is concerned.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, I don't even really like that. I mean, if you're the Titans and you have the number 1 pick and you decide to draft Cam Ward or somebody, do you really want him to stay a year behind Aaron Rodgers?
That's not the guy that I want mentoring.
I mean, like,
future franchise.
I mean, I'm just no thank you. I mean, Atlanta's locked up. Cleveland could be a spot, but I mean, do you know what? That would be
perfect. Well, if there's anybody that deserves to have to stay in Ohio, it's him, right?
I think that's probably pretty unlikely, Michael.
Yeah, there's a lot of chatter in the LA side about staff. So because they said that they were going to be trading Cup. It's a real bummer. Stafford and Cooper Kupp were really close friends. I don't see them trading. I don't see them trading Stafford at all. Stafford wants to be there. He wants to play. So, but that was one of the scenarios of like, oh, what if Stafford got traded to the same place that Kupp went? And the target for that rumor is the New York Giants. So it would be Stafford and Kupp going to the Giants, but I'm not sure what they get in return. Like, what do the Giants have that LA would want other than draft picks, right? I'm like,
first of all,
it's absurd.
Apparently, the only thing anyone needs now to write for any kind of syndicated publication is just an Xbox and like whatever current version of Madden is out there. You're not going to name me the last time a quarterback and a wide receiver were traded to the same place from the place they both played together. I mean, that is nuts.
Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams?
Well, he
I guess
didn't
they
go
were.
there right away.
Yeah, Tay went to Las Vegas first. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, like, so I mean, if you're gonna do something like
Yeah.
just to lend credence to that for a second,
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong. Matt Stafford's issue with the Rams is that he wants more guaranteed money in his deal.
Yeah.
So they
Which
need
is going to be
they
the easy. It's an easy fix,
so
right?
they need to extend him, so that they can work more guaranteed money into
Yeah.
the next contract. Fine, like
Yeah.
that happened already once there, and they
Yeah.
got it done. So I mean, they're going to get it done
It'll
again.
happen
But
again.
yeah, so like, and I love Cooper
McVay and
Kupp.
him
Like,
are best friend. Like they are like meant for each other, and they both know it. So I just don't see that happening at all.
so Cooper Kupp, I love watching that guy play football. He's an absolute joy to watch. But I do believe he'll be traded.
Yeah.
And I don't think any shortage of teams that would want a player like him. We're not getting Miles Garrett. Stop. Stop.
I would love it, but I'm not. I'm not thinking
Sure.
that we
Well,
will.
fire up the Xbox
Yeah.
and get out your copy of Madden, because that's what it's going to take. Because
Yeah.
the
Like who
thing
wouldn't
that
love it, right? Like
well,
anybody that says, "Oh, I wouldn't want that at all," is just lying.
the difference between Cooper Kupp and Miles Garrett is that the Rams actively want to trade Cooper Kupp, and the Cleveland Browns have said they do not want to trade Miles Garrett. And why would they want to trade him?
Right.
The
Yeah.
guy's amazing, and if they do trade him, they just compound their already terrible salary cap problems. So, like, Michael, we should bet lunch on that dude, because I'm betting that he is not a Los Angeles Ram week 1.
Well, he's saying that Rams are going to have to cut him instead.
Okay, all right, fine. You guys sucked me into this. I can't stand you. All right, let's take a look at Cooper Kupp's contract. Here are the Rams. Where's Kupp? There he is, right there. So if Cooper Kupp is traded before June 1st, they take a 17 million dead cap hit, and the Rams save 12.5 million bucks. So like, that is completely feasible to bring into a new team. You bring in a Cooper Kupp, you sign him to a two-year deal. He's 32. You sign him to a 2-year deal. You work in a bunch of void years on the thing. You spread the money out. You give him a little bit more guaranteed money. Case closed. You do this. Everything's great. So like, yeah. And so if the Rams offer to absorb, so if they offer to absorb money, like Danny's saying, I don't want Kupp here.
This is the Lions are one of the places that are supposedly like the one of the main destinations for Cooper Kupp. I mean, I would take him. I just don't know if I want his salary at this point.
You don't have to worry about a salary. You can, what you do is you take in the 17 that Cooper Kupp's owed, or 19, or whatever it is.
Right.
And then you sign him to a contract extension, and you spread the money out. And then and then you can immediately restructure him to add another void year onto it. Like he might cost 17 million, but his cap hit next year might be 6.5 or something. Yeah. After all the like hoops that everyone's going to jump through, and they'll do that for a player like Cooper Kupp. Like, so what I would expect is he's probably going to go to a team that was a divisional round or higher playoff team that has a little bit of money to spend. Like, I don't think he's going to New England or anything like that, but like, what about Washington?
Yeah.
Washington would be a nice place for Cooper Kupp. I think they've got money,
give Drake May somebody to throw to.
Sure. But like, they're nowhere close to the playoffs. So
no. Yeah, and I think the Rams will trade him to a decent place, right? They basically
KC. We talked about that, right, Dr. Detroit? We talked about him going to KC.
Dude, that would be awesome. I mean, it'd be fun to watch, to be honest. It would be fun if he can stay healthy. As Michael, I think it was Michael that was saying that oft injured. Yeah.
So like, I think that, Cooper Kupp is just a hardworking, excellent football player that a lot of teams are going to figure out their cap situations in order to absorb. Like, and if no one can absorb Cooper Kupp, then no one can absorb Miles Garrett.
Right.
So, and that stuff happens. So, I mean, I don't think he's going to go for like a day 2 pick or anything like this. Like, this has all the markings of something like, you give us a 5th round pick and we'll give you Cooper Kupp and a 6th round pick just to
Yeah.
facilitate, because what we want is to get him off the books. It's not about the draft compensation.
Yeah. It's about the cap relief.
And maybe he does get cut, Michael, but then he gets to go wherever he wants. And like, I think that if I'm the Rams, I want more out of this than nothing. So, so I think that I would take a quote unquote bad deal. It's not a no brainer. Like for
I mean,
like a dozen
I'd love
reasons. So
yeah, I'd love it, but I just
like, I get it. Like,
I
it's
don't,
exciting
yeah.
to think about, but like it's just completely flies in the face of everything that Brad has done, wants to do, has operated the team on numerous different
And
ways.
said like we're building through the draft, right? We're
Right.
not going to go out. We're not an F them picks kind of group. No, that may change though, right? Because you know, you and I have talked about your strategy for roster construction changes as the quality of your team changes and everything else. So, you know, he may go, hey, you know what? We're not going to be able to sign,
He doesn't have to
you
pivot.
know, have that many, you know, draft picks and bring them all onto the squad. Like, all right, maybe we'll just use a couple of our high draft picks to trade for a dude, and instead of having to try to figure out how to get 3 or 4 dudes from the draft in, we'll just trade that out for one dude. And I could see that potentially being a thing. I just don't see. I'll believe it when I see it. Like, wait until
Yeah,
Brad actually does it, right?
like, there's so many people out there right now, content creators, that are like, oh my God, the Lions have to change what they're doing, otherwise they'll never get over the hump. Like, apparently the only way to get over the hump is to trade for one of the best players in the NFL. And then how many teams does that work out for? How many times did Kansas City trade for the best player in the NFL when they won 3 Super Bowls in the last 5 years or whatever? Like, who did Philadelphia, what best player in the NFL did Philadelphia trade for to win the Super Bowl this year? Right? Like,
You could argue Saquon,
it's a
but
ridiculous
they
pitch.
had, yeah.
It
But
has
I'm not
not
sure
worked
he
out
was
for
what.
Philly. Howie Roseman has been building that roster for like 17 years and has a very, very obvious and determinate style in how he wants to do it. And the thing about Philly is it completely disproves the point about pivoting to try and get star players. It worked for the Rams, but the Rams did that over 8 years to try and
Yeah.
acquire those players, and it finally got them 1 ring. Howie Roseman has built the Philadelphia Eagles along a singular principled roster building strategy. Thank you, Danny.
Yeah.
And it finally got them a ring. And they have been a playoff team that has been good for over a decade and probably a lot longer. I just don't care about them. Sorry, Michael Whartonby. In order and pay attention enough. So, like, if you look at teams that are good in the NFL, historically, the Patriots, the Steelers, the Ravens, the 49ers, the Eagles, even the Cowboys to an extent, and the Packers back when Aaron Rodgers was there winning MVP awards, what they do is they have a strategy and they stick to it, and they're good for a long time.
Yeah.
And they win their divisions, and then they make the playoffs, and then eventually they get to the Super Bowl, and they have a chance. And that is where Detroit is just now starting to dip their toe into the water. And so it
We're
might
finally
be
at
10
this
years.
that we can maintain a high end, right?
And if you are Brad Holmes, and part of what you're doing is to ensure that you're continued to be employed, which one of these 2 things do you think you're going to do? Trade for Myles Garrett, mortgage the future on the hope that a 2-year window or a 6-year window gets you 1 Super Bowl, or do you build to be in the playoffs with the potential? Like, what if Detroit's the new Philadelphia Eagles for the next 10 years? And they end up going to the Super Bowl 3 times in a decade and they win 1. You think that Brad Holmes is not the GM of that football team for the next decade? The other way is so much rockier. It has so much more that can go wrong with it. There's no chance that Brad Holmes is just like, fire up my fucking Xbox. Get me my scouting team in here. Who's a 99 on Madden that we can go get?
Right.
You are mortgaging
It'll be interesting to
the
see. It'll be interesting to see how we go, right?
So this is let me tell you how it's mortgaging the future. So you brought up you're going to trade 2 firsts and a third, right? Okay, so there go your first two round picks and a third round pick for the next 2 seasons. Look at who the core players are that Brad's extending. They're day 1 and day 2 players outside of like St. Brown. Okay, they're first and second round picks. Almost all of them. Look at the last year's draft, the 2 years ago. We had 4 contributors in the first 2 rounds. So now you have less of those guys. And if you want to go with this, like you need to give up all these picks to go get Garrett, then don't come back to me and be like, we trust in Brad Holmes, because that's not what that is. What you're saying now is that this hasn't worked, so we don't trust in Brad Holmes. So you have to go out and get proven commodities in order to get over the hump. So like you can't have it both ways. So then you have to pay Garrett. So he comes in, he's going to have a $19.8 million contract in 2025. It's up to 20. It's another $1 million in 2026. So who aren't you signing? Are you not signing Kevin Zeitler and Dan Skipper and Derek Barnes and Tim Patrick and Carlton Davis? Because those projected salaries are about $19 million. So who amongst those guys do you want to give up? Because it's not just the draft picks you traded. It's not just the money that he's going to be owed. It's also the opportunity cost of all the guys you had to give up because you're now paying him the same money. So no, you're going to hurt your depth. That, by the way, that was a problem this year. And he can then not get hurt. He can then not be anything less than what he's been his entire career. So like, you want to put it all on one dude? I mean, go ahead. But if Detroit has any injury history like they did this year, and you trade for Garrett, it's not like everything's fine. We're for sure Super Bowl winner. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, and I love the fact that it's been a while since we brought this out, but I heard the word opportunity cost, and it made me happy.
Well, I mean, because it's the truth.
Right.
It's not just the draft picks and the money. You lose players because you give Garrett money that you would otherwise give to them. So like Kirby Joseph is projected to be the highest paid safety in the NFL. He's projected to get a $23 million a year contract extension per spot rack. So if that's the same, and we've seen Brad pay well to quote unquote his guys, like, are you going to pay Kirby Joseph more than you're going to pay Myles Garrett? Are you really going to trade 2 first-round picks and change to rent him for 2 seasons and not extend him? Come on. Hutchinson's going to get a contract extension maybe as soon as March that's going to look like the same one that Myles Garrett's going to get. You're going to pay $75 million for your defensive ends? Come on. Yeah. Come on. It's ridiculous. And by the way, once again, Cleveland doesn't want to trade him.
Yeah. Well, so we did talk about the Cooper Kupp and his potential in Kansas City. I think that'd be a great spot for him to land, and I'm sure Patrick Mahomes would love to have him as a target. So let's talk Kansas City. Kansas City versus the Eagles, the Super Bowl, 40-22, and at one point I was asking, has there ever been a shutout in the Super Bowl? Because it doesn't look like they're getting more than 3 and outs the entire way. It was, I'm sure Michael Whartonby was just rolling and having the best time. But Kansas City Chiefs fans out there, man, they were bummed. It was their offensive line couldn't do anything.
That was it.
Jeez. And their defensive line couldn't stop Jalen Hurts from random 40-yard, scampers when they were doing good coverage and he had nowhere to throw the ball. He's like, all right, well, I'm just going to run for 30 yards. It was kind of crazy. What were your thoughts on the game? When did it feel just not in doubt?
Second quarter.
Isn't that crazy?
Partially through the second quarter. I was just like, now, normally I just watch the Lions on Sunday.
Right.
But like the NFL feels like now that there's no more comebacks.
Yeah.
The NFL feels like a team is going to go out and establish something that's effective. And if there's no counterpunch or adjustment to that, they just keep doing it. And I don't remember when DeJean had his pick 6, but that's when it felt like this is not in the cards. This
I
is not
think
in the
that was
cards.
still the second quarter. Might have been third quarter. So yeah, I felt. By the way, happy birthday to Cooper DeJean.
Yeah, no
Right?
kidding.
I
Happy
mean,
22, bro.
jeez.
Yeah.
That was pretty awesome. I can't imagine a better birthday present than to have a pick 6 as a rookie in the Super Bowl that you win. That was pretty awesome.
So my going into the game, my thoughts were like Kansas City's defense is probably going to be the unit that I'm most interested to watch how they affect Philly's offense. And it was
Yeah.
the complete opposite. They did a real nice job on Saquon, but that's about all they did. Like,
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts was putting the ball in the right spots to the right guys at the right time. He had 4 or 5 incredibly effective scrambles that like netted them first down or got them out of like horrible like tackle for loss down and distance type of plays. And he was just able to do that. He wasn't like crazy. I mean, like he was just good, and the the Kansas City Chiefs had to move their left guard Joe Tooney out to left tackle, and he'd been playing pretty well out there in the playoffs. No one's gonna have a roster of 20 UDFAs, man. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, I read it wrong. My bad. So the pressure off the edge on effectively a guard playing tackle, and they're just absolute trash right tackle. Is this reminded me of the Super Bowl they lost like 3 years ago, or I think it was to the Bucks and Brady.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing. Like Mahomes was running for his life, and it just, I mean, you can be the best quarterback in the NFL or maybe one of the all-time greats. And if you're just running for your life the whole time, like it really takes a toll on you. Remember we had that debate like sacks versus pressures?
Yeah.
Well, now we have an entire game of examples as to why pressures matter.
Yeah.
This is why pressures matter, is this game. You can just watch this game. 100 million people watch this game, or however many it was. This is the problem with pressures, is that they force even great players.
This is the total pressures for the game. They had
That's insane.
30 pressures.
And they never blitzed once.
And somehow, I'm not sure how Josh Sweat ended up with a 55.5. I felt like he was higher than that. But like, yeah, they never blitzed once, and they had how many sacks? They had 7 sacks with
It's
0
crazy.
blitzes.
Their pass rush win rate for the game was like 40-something%. So, and like Kansas City just could not run the ball. They just can't run the ball. So, I mean, I just think that the Eagles had a plan for how they were going to win this game, and it was the better plan.
Yeah,
they just got
and
they just crushed
more
them.
Players playing at a high level.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
I'm just like, everybody just had their career game. It felt like.
Well, but the thing I think of it is that like, I don't know why the Eagles didn't play this way more often during the season, and maybe like I didn't watch them, so like maybe Whartonby can tell me. But like, when you when you make the kind of investment in a defensive line that Philadelphia has made consistently, like you can just sign up for Philadelphia drafting a lineman in round 1 on one side of the ball almost all the time, right? Like last year was the weird part when they went corner, but like
worked out okay.
it did. They see, the thing is they just draft good players.
Yeah,
they don't pigeonhole themselves into doing something. and like his philosophy have been that you win on the lines, and they have arguably the best offensive line in the NFL, and they have drafted excellent Jalen Carter defensive players on the lines year after year after year after year after year. So they always have fresh, new, developing, excellent pass rushers across the entire line, like Milton Williams, Fletcher Cox, um, Jalen Carter, was it Jaden Phillips? Who's the huge guy from Georgia they drafted a couple years ago? Brandon Graham has been there for
Can't think of his name.
over 10 years. Like they drafted Nolan Smith, who's just a guy there now. Like they drafted another guy, Jalix Hunt, who's just a guy there, but like has spots where he gets to go and rush the passer. And like this is who the Philadelphia Eagles are. And they played the Chiefs 2 years ago in the Super Bowl and lost.
Yes.
And now they got them this time.
Yeah.
And that team is not totally different than what it was, 2 or 3 years ago.
Right.
So I chased everybody away with my Myles Garrett trade hate idea.
No, I mean, you're right though. Like the odds are we're not going to do that until Brad shows us otherwise. Let's just assume it's not going to happen, and then be pleasantly surprised if he can pull something off that makes sense, right?
That's all I'm saying, man. Is that like, can Cleveland hasn't said that they're willing to do it? They're the ones that hold all the cards.
Yeah.
And then even if they say, yeah, okay, Myles, we'll trade you. Like he is going to want it. He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to be a part of a rebuild, so he's already eliminating teams he can go to, and I'm sure he wants to get extended and finally get paid like for what he's worth. So like I'm pretty sure that the team who trades for him is going to want to extend him.
They're going to need to.
Right. So like who has money, who's decent, who wants? I mean, everybody wants Myles Garrett. Like there's
right.
So like the team that I think is the front runner, if and when they're going to trade him, is the Commanders.
What about Minnesota? I don't remember what their cap situation's like actually.
Well, I think I don't know. Let's take a look. Make this whole podcast about. So they got $58 million. So they have $12 million more in cap space than the Lions do going into this season. So now here's the difference, I think, between the Viking situation and the Lions situation. The Vikings can let Sam Darnold walk into free agency because they have at least somebody that they're willing to try on a rookie deal. So like, and that is the difference, is that the Lions are paying Jared Goff, I believe, $36 million next year, and the Vikings are going to pay JJ like $8 million. So that's the difference. So you can just fit Myles Garrett straight into it. Now, the Vikings have I think the least amount of draft capital of any team in the NFL in this upcoming class. And if I am Cleveland, I want draft picks 2 years from now. I want draft picks for the 26 season. So I can trade up and get Arch Manning or some other. There's always going to be some college quarterback that comes out of nowhere that's like, oh, okay, I'm a top 5 pick. So they want that guy.
Like Shardeur Sanders did in the last year and a half. Like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that was never a thing. People like, you got to watch this kid and, for the 2025 draft class.
So if you're Minnesota and you've got you have half a normal class of draft picks and needs that you got to fill, are you willing to say, okay, we're going to go 2 years effectively not having decent picks because we're all in on Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett's the thing. Like that's just it. Like Myles Garrett or any player, to be honest, any player should never be looked at as, if we acquire player X, we're good. We're fine. Everything's fine.
When was the last time there was that level of a trade? And it was probably the Stafford trade, right? The last time a high end for multiple first round draft. Like, when was the last time someone was traded for multiple first round draft choices?
Multiple first round draft choices.
It's probably Stafford. And
Well,
before that, I can't
Jalen
remember.
Ramsey,
Um,
he went for 2
well, that was
rings.
God. That was like five. That was like 4 years before
I'm
Stafford
just
got the
trying to
deal,
name.
right?
I'm just trying to name
Yeah,
the trades.
yeah. There's not many, right? So, um, because of that, I see this being very unlikely.
Oh, it's
um,
crazy.
and I mean,
So,
I with Stafford, it makes sense because quarterbacks are that one position that can put you up and over like their predecessor kind of thing. I just don't see that kind of difference making from from Miles Garrett. Like, I don't think he is the missing piece for a team that's going to catapult them to the Super Bowl.
so I think that Miles Garrett is one of the few non-quarterbacks in the NFL that can change the course of a game. He can't do that nearly as often as a quarterback can. Any
Right.
quarterback. So the dude's been the best pass rusher in the NFL for like 10 years. But I do think that the price to get him is probably the right price for what he's worth. But you have to be a team who doesn't value or can say like, "Oh, we're in a spot where we don't need these draft picks in order to maintain the level that we're currently playing."
Yeah.
And like in 2 years is a lot of capital. So I'm the other thing the thing that I think is just the crux of this entire problem is that he'll add $36 million in dead money to the Browns 25 cap.
Cap. Yeah.
And
Which is
so
already screwed because of Deshaun Watson.
right, so like there was already a this is what you have to do in order to um take that hit from Garrett is you have to restructure Deshaun's contract again, which means that he has to be on the team for another year more than they want. And then you have to cut your starting right tackle and you have to restructure another dude. So they don't get any cap relief. They have to make more moves just to allow it to take place and stay and spin their tires. And the payoff for them is that then they can start getting their cap under control the following season. Like it's a move that basically says we have to stay in place for a whole nother year, even if they get there from a cap standpoint.
Right.
So can you convince if you convince another team to take on more of his cap, you get back worse draft assets.
Exactly.
So like now you're gonna what? You're gonna take a 1 and maybe a couple like a day 2 and a day 3 all in the same year for Miles Garrett so that you can get $20 million back in cap relief? Like that doesn't get it done either.
Yeah.
So like um I mean if someone could convince me that there was an avenue that Cleveland could take that doesn't put them in crippling salary cap hell and trade Miles Garrett, then yeah. But like at this point, what's better for them financially to keep him on the roster and just fine him for not showing up? I mean,
Probably, actually.
so I mean, like,
His cap number is 19.7 million, but his dead cap would be 36.
yeah. So I mean, like that's it. Is that his they can't get the 36 to 20.
Yeah.
So and I get it. I would love nothing more than to watch Miles Garrett and Aiden Hutchinson coming off the edge for like next 2 years.
Yeah.
That would be so
Or
much
even the
fun.
next four, even as he's
Yeah,
getting older, like the next 4 years.
it would be so much fun. But like if you extend Garrett, so if he's on the team for 4 years, he's getting an extension. you have to then give up players because now there's just not enough room.
Yeah.
So do you give up Jamison Williams, Kirby Joseph, Jameer Gibbs? Who are you giving up?
Yes. No. No.
Like who are we giving up? And then what does that say to your first round picks that saw Ali McNeil, Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown
Soon
all
to be
get
Hutch.
extended?
Yep.
And then it's like, oh, but we'll bring in other people and I'll let you guys go, even though we've called you like the pillars of our team,
Yeah.
since you were drafted, So like, I just think it sends the wrong message to the team. Like, would it be great to have Myles Garrett? Yeah. I'm never going to say that having him on the team is a bad thing, but it has to make sense. And it has to make more sense than it would just be really cool that he'd be on the team.
Yeah.
So I'm just not there yet.
Yeah. In addition to the Super Bowl, they had the Pro Football Hall of Fame class was announced. So Eric Allen, defensive back, also played for Philly for many years. In his 19th year of eligibility, finally made it in. Jared Allen, the edge rusher from Minnesota, who gave us a lot of hell for a lot of years, he made it in his 5th year of eligibility. Antonio Gates, tight end, listed as his 2nd year of eligibility as a finalist. And I know he's been retired for more than 5 years or whatever, so I'm not exactly sure how they qualify years of eligibility as a finalist, but they listed him as a 2nd year. Unless that's just he got enough votes finally, and this is like the 2nd year he got enough votes to be considered, and he actually got in. And then Sterling Sharp, Shannon's brother, wide receiver, he got into the seniors coach and contributor category. So that I believe they are the first brothers to be elected into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So
Neat.
Congrats to the group. What were your thoughts on some of the? This is the smallest class since when was that? 4-person class is the smallest class to be inducted since 2005, when Dan Marino, Steve Young, Benny Friedman, and Fritz Pollard were inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Did they say why they only inducted 4 people?
So you can induct up to 5 people in the modern era players class, which is what this group is. You have to have at least a minimum of 80% of positive votes to be elected. So other guys, Luke Kuechly, Eli Manning, they didn't get 80% of the vote.
That's so stupid.
Isn't that crazy? So only 3 were elected this year, but it could be as many as 5 for the modern era.
I think the class being this small is ridiculous. I think that Luke Kuechly not getting in right away is ridiculous. I don't know what goes into someone's. I don't know what the argument could possibly be to say, Luke Kuechly, you're not. 80% of people who voted didn't think that you were one of the best linebackers to ever play in the NFL. Right. I just don't get it. I just don't understand. I just don't. Someone would have to sit here and explain it to me, like, you have to wait your turn, or this guy's not done using it yet, or whatever nonsense, in my opinion, goes into making these decisions. So I just
that kind of baffles me. I've never heard of anybody not say something to the effect of he could be considered one of the top 3 to 5 of all time at his position. Yeah. Not just like not Hall of Fame worthy, but like literally all time at your position, top 3, maybe top 5 at the worst kind of thing. And then to have that be such a common thought, and then him not even make it, boggles my mind.
Yeah. So
Eli makes a little bit more sense to me, because I know that there's a little bit more like how elite was he. He's, like you said earlier before the show, like he's got 2 rings. I believe 1 MVP, a Super Bowl MVP.
I think he has a Super Bowl MVP.
And but he was never really. I mean, there were a lot of quarterbacks that were really, really damn good that played in the shadows of Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, and Aaron Rodgers. Right? He was one of those. So it's really tough to be considered. Oh, you weren't even the greatest of your era. Well, that era included Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, and Aaron Rodgers. So it's going to
Sure.
be really hard, right? So,
And I will make the
um,
same case for Ben Roethlisberger making the Hall of Fame that I will for Eli Manning, and that's that they each won 2 Super Bowls in that era. So you're in.
yeah, yeah. I
So
and I totally get that. I think winning Super Bowls is hard, right? Like as Lions fan, we know it's hard. It doesn't happen all the time. You need to be really damn good to get there and do it, right? So, um, if that's the criteria, like that makes sense to me as a quarterback, because that's right or wrong. While wins are a team stat, that is how quarterbacks are judged. So those were the two big snubs that I thought. Curious if anybody else thought there were other snubs that were guys that they thought should have gotten in there. Were there any others that you were thinking?
no, but to be fair, I don't care about this at all. So um
What about Adam Vinatieri?
I don't care. Like, sure. I mean, he was a kicker that was really good for a long time for multiple teams, so he can go in. I don't have a problem with that. Like, I don't know how you judge greatness on a kicker. That's my problem. That's why I don't care about it. Is it the percentage of them you made? How did you? I mean, were you the first person to make a 61-yarder? Like, and then but people will be like, well, you only kicked in domes. I don't care. Like, I just don't care. Steve Smith, I mean, I like him. Torrey Holt has a great case. Reggie Wayne has a great case. Fred Taylor was a great running back for a long time. Terrell Suggs, Yonda. I could see Marshall Yonda being in the Hall of Fame. Darren Woodson, Jari Evans. I don't think there's any chance Jari Evans ever gets in.
Yeah.
Willie Anderson. I don't know. That was before my time. So I mean, like the people on this list that I watched that I think are worthy of being in the Hall of Fame are Eli Manning and Luke Kuechly. So
Yeah. I would throw Vinatieri in there. Um, and I would probably also throw Terrell Suggs in there. But they would be 3 and 4 in that order of my top 4 list. The rest, I mean, Torrey Holt was fun to watch, right? Him and Isaac Bruce tore it up with the greatest show on turf. But he was always second fiddle. Like he was never really a top 10 guy, but he was in that 11 to 25 range all the time. But is that good enough to be the Hall of Fame? I don't know. But I think the other guys, Vinatieri, I mean, he may be the best kicker in history, from a percentage standpoint and a clutch standpoint. Multiple Super Bowl winning kicks. Like I'm kind of surprised he didn't get in there, but it's really hard for kickers to get in there, which is unfortunate that some of the special teamers, like I don't know if there's any punters in the Hall of Fame, but you know what? There's probably some really damn good punters that deserve to have a light shined on them, but just don't see that happening anytime soon.
yeah, I guess my thing is like if you are only allowed to let X number of people into the Hall of Fame every year, then you should be letting that number of people in, or just
Yeah.
don't have it.
Yeah.
Like to be fair, the way that this model continues to go is that eventually no one will be worthy of getting into the Hall of Fame because you can't eclipse the greatness of the people who are already have been in there.
Yeah.
So like if that's where we're headed, then I mean like tell me why I should,
Pay
think about
attention.
this.
Yeah.
So one thing I base my opinion on is that there is a website, and I'm going to try and look it up while we're talking, called like Hall of Fame Formula.com or something. And
Kind of
they
gives
have
like a
like,
points to
yes,
their career and then like ranks what their likeliness of being in the Hall of Fame is or something, right?
yes. So like, correct. So like I have gone and looked at that, and I don't agree with all of their all of the things that they do in order to guess at who's getting in. But like they're pretty solid. Like their formula based upon like what people have achieved and done and won and all that kind of how long they played and that kind of stuff is pretty solid from
Yeah.
what it looks like, and like I mean, I think that if Lamar Jackson had won a third MVP this year, he'd be a lock for the Hall of Fame because he's a 3-time MVP award winner. It's the same. It's basically the same conversation that like Aaron Rodgers has. He's got 4 MVPs in a Super Bowl, so Super Bowls really help. So like I don't know that there are that many 2-time winning Super Bowls who are not quarterbacks who are not in the Hall of Fame. So I know that like no matter what, like Patrick Mahomes is a Hall of Famer tomorrow if he's eligible. So like I don't know what we're really talking about here. I mean, like it seems like they reward winning and like individual like and accolades that promote your individual greatness.
Yeah.
So
in stats too, though. So look at like Calvin, right? He never won anything. He never won MVPs, never won Super Bowls, never won the division. But he's in because his stats have showed like the dude is amazing. Like he was just stuck on a garbage team. So I think they do recognize that kind of stuff.
He's a wide receiver.
Some of that context.
Right. So I only really care about the Hall of Fame in the context of like quarterbacks.
Oh, fair.
Because I don't know what a Hall of Fame wide receiver looks like. So does Calvin Johnson, do I think that he should be in the Hall of Fame? Sure. Like doesn't he have the all-time yards in a season record?
He does. 1,968.
So, it was a shame what happened to him from an injury standpoint, and his body just got broken down. But like he's enormous, and that happens to people who are enormous. But like tell me what a safety has to do to get into the Hall of Fame. Like I just don't know. So
this is Pro Football Reference.com. This is their Hall of Fame monitor. And this is where they, similar to what you're talking about, they're using AV, Pro Bowls, All Pros, championships, and different stat milestones. And they kind of do a formula of sorts. So this is the quarterback list with the number of points. So the average Hall of Fame quarterback is 108 points. Whatever this metric is, right?
Yep.
So like obviously Brady's up there. He'll be in as soon as he's eligible. Rodgers will be in. Breeze will be in. Like Mahomes is almost there already, and he's only been in the league for 7 years.
Yeah, but there's no way that he's not already in. He's got 3 Super Bowls.
And that's why this is the average, right? So like I can see, Roethlisberger getting in. I can see Russell Wilson getting in. Eli and Stafford, I think, will both get in. Lamar will get in. And these are the active ones. That's why they're not bolded. The bolded ones are no longer active. Like I can see most everybody on this. I'm not sure about Phillip Rivers. Matt Ryan is actually really close to that. And I don't think people think of him as that. So I think he's kind of in that same group of like really, really, really good, but lived in the shadow kind of guys. Along with Manning, Stafford, and Roethlisberger. So I think most of those guys will end up getting in. Maybe not first ballot, but I think most of those guys will get in. But it's a pretty good site if you ever check it out, profootballreference.com. They got it cool. And you can do that for different, like running backs, and you can sort them differently too. Frank Gore is up close there. You want to transition over to the NFL honors?
Sure, we can do that.
They had the awards. Josh Allen ended up with MVP. It really kind of came down to the Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson debate. And I think if Joe Burrow had gotten his team to the playoffs, it would have been a really close 3-person debate. But since he didn't, and quarterbacks are gauged on wins and getting your teams to the postseason, he kind of fell out of that conversation. So Allen pulled that one out. Were you expecting Allen, or were you thinking Lamar would pull it out?
I was thinking. I mean, I didn't know, so I thought coin flip was appropriate. And
Yeah,
to be honest, if either one of them got it, I thought they earned it. I thought Josh Allen played great all year, so
yeah, agreed.
well done.
Offensive Player of the Year was Saquon Barkley. Almost broke the all-time rushing record. He did break the all-time single-season record, including playoffs. Um, and I figured I was a little surprised that it was him and not a quarterback, to be honest, because a lot of times the MVP is also the Offensive Player of the Year or something like that. But
Yeah, I'm fine with Saquon getting it. I mean, he had a great year,
yeah,
and it's an. I mean, I think you and I will talk about this maybe a little bit later, but like I am fine with the MVP almost always being a quarterback, and then the Offensive Player of the Year award never being a quarterback.
yes,
Like let's honor other people who had great years as well. So yeah, Saquon and Josh, good job, excellent
yep.
years.
Defensive Player of the Year, Patrick Surtain the second. Um, he played great. I was a little surprised it was him, to be honest, but I think he was definitely worthy.
I didn't watch the Denver unless the did the Denver Broncos play the Lions this year?
I do not believe so.
Yeah, so I didn't watch him play all year, but I've ever since he's come into the league, he's been right at the top of like cornerback rankings, how well they've played, that type of thing. So like I'm fine with him getting it because I don't know that there is a defensive player who really kind of put their mark on this season.
Yeah, that didn't go out after week 5.
So like if Hutch had I I was suspicious that if Hutch could have kept up that pace all season.
Oh, well, yeah. He had what, 60 pressures in the first 5 games or something like that?
Well, not only that,
And the
but like
league leader for the season was 89.
so he played against backup right tackles every week
Yep.
for like the first 6 weeks. So I mean, like it's not like he's doing this against Jordan Mailata. Now I love Aiden Hutchinson. He's one of my favorite players, has been for since he was in college. But like, can we acknowledge the fact that he was not going up against the elite tackles in the NFL every week? Now, I will also say, to be fair, that if you're not going up against elite tackles, your numbers should look like this. If you're a really great player, like you should be dominating the guys across from you, and he was. So
At a historic level, too.
yeah. So like, let's say if you took the pace that he was on, what was it through? What you say through 6 weeks?
I think it was basically 10 pressures a week was kind of his average.
Yeah. So I was going to say if you cut that
270 in a year.
right. So if you cut that in half, it would be an all-time season. Right. So if you cut it down to 25% of what he had done, in the first 6 games, like you're still probably looking at the best season in the NFL from a pass rushing perspective.
Yeah.
So that probably would have gotten it done. So like I think that it's very likely if Aiden had not been hurt, he probably would have been Defensive Player of the Year, which is what makes it such a shame.
Yeah.
So they'll just have to win it next year.
Yeah. Let's do that. Offensive Rookie of the Year, Jaden Daniels. I don't think anybody was super shocked. He played so good.
He was great.
And just wrecked our season.
Yeah. People in Washington got to be pretty goddamn thrilled that like, oh, okay, like the Bears got Caleb Williams or whatever, and like he was the number 1 pick for 2 years, before he was actually the number 1 pick, and like, oh, we got the number 2 pick in the Caleb Williams draft. Oh, we got Jaden Daniels. Neat. Like, okay, like we're totally fine with it.
Yeah.
That
Do you think Ben's regretting not taking that Washington job?
I don't know how you could not be. Like he goes to Chicago, and he in his press conference he was like, "This is where we wanted to be the whole time," and I was like, "Bullshit!" Like
you have to
that's
say
not
that.
true. That's not true. Like why would anybody want to be in Chicago? But Caleb Williams is there. I heard they're paying him $13 a year which makes he's pretty well paid as far as a head coach is concerned. Makes
Yeah.
more than Dan, but like I think that Washington would have paid him more. They were flying their GM, head coach, and some other executive out to Detroit to talk to him. He was the front runner deep into the like head coaching carousel.
Yeah.
Like he was obviously their number one choice. And like I don't know. I mean, obviously, like you don't know what season Jaden Daniels had before he had it. But like I also think like, well, if all things the same, like I don't know that I'm that bad that I get to coach this dude, you know?
Right.
So like I don't know, dude. I think he's probably pretty happy with where he is, but Jaden Daniels is an absolute assassin.
He was. I mean, he was good with his legs and with his arm.
Oh,
Right. He was just on point. Against us, he could do no wrong. Not
yeah.
just on the running side, and we couldn't stop that. But he was dropping dimes. He was pinpoint accurate on his downfield throws. I was really impressed watching him this year. So I'll be curious to see what he does. He may be the best quarterback in the NFC in 2 years from now.
Yep. I think his poise was unbelievable for someone who's 22 years old or 25, however old he is. So, and if he can maintain that and not get rattled, I don't see any reason why he can't continue to do what he's doing. So, he's great.
Next up, defensive rookie of the year, Jared Verse from the Rams.
Not a surprise. The guy was great all year. One of the most powerful rushers in the NFL. Stop sentence.
Yeah, he led the NFL in pressures for this season. Not NFL rookies. He led the NFL in pressures as a rookie with 89. Hutch's rookie season, I believe he had 83. No, I don't remember. I don't want to say a word. I don't want to say something that happened to be wrong, which I just did. But yeah, he was fun to watch. To think that they've got him there, Braden Fisk, their interior defensive lineman, was also up for Rookie of the Year. Kobe Turner was up for Rookie of the Year last year. Their defensive line is nasty again already with Aaron Donald gone. So if they could just do something about that secondary, they might put a defense together.
Maybe,
yeah. Comeback Player of the Year, Joe Burrow.
Sure, whatever.
That's one of those awkward. I mean, I think he only missed like 4 or 5 games last year. So like, I guess like what's the criteria to be Comeback Player of the Year?
I thought, shit, give it to Bryce Young. Like, give it to him for this year.
Yeah,
like he gets benched
literally
after week
the first
2.
half versus the last half. You came back like
give it to Bryce Young. Like, who fucking cares? Like, does Joe Burrow need this award? I don't. And you came back and did what? Played well? Oh my God! Did no one think that Joe Burrow was going to play well? Like, is this is a surprise? Like, at least DeMar Hamlin died to win his award. I mean, like,
did he win? I don't think he won.
I don't know. I mean, like, he should have.
He was up for it again this year, though.
Guy died in the middle of a football game, and they brought him back. And like, I think Joe Burrow's a really good quarterback. But like, he is on a trajectory to be like, I have all these stats and no wins.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know if that's coaching or the fact that the ownership won't sink money into the team or whatever.
It's not the money thing. They're always toward the top of the cap. The problem is they're putting it in
their organization.
The right side of the
Yeah. Like, they're notoriously cheap when it comes to non-salary cap stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So like,
but their defense is just straight garbage.
Right. And their defense is garbage.
Yeah.
So I mean, like,
they're fun team to watch.
Like, you have Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson that you have to fight in your own conference.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, okay, you just have a microcosm of like the Brady, Manning, Aaron Rodgers situation, but it's a microcosm of that, like in your own in your own conference. And like right now,
Yeah.
I would say he's the fourth of those guys. So
Yeah, probably, which is crazy because
yeah,
any other time he would be the best in the NFL. And
like
that's how good that conference is.
all four of those guys are the best. If they get traded to an NFC team, they're the best. They're the best quarterback in the conference, and it's not
Yeah.
close.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, it's a
So
real
thank God they're
problem,
over there.
right?
We
Exactly,
don't have to worry about them in the Super Bowl. And if we
right.
get there, that's, you know,
You might have to play one or two of them a year, like in the regular season, if you're like us and finish first in your division or whatever. But like,
yeah.
I mean, a lot of people really like Joe Burrow. So
I think he's
okay,
great.
you're the comeback player of the year.
Um, who else we've got? Head coach of the year.
This is a
Not Dan
travesty.
Campbell.
This is a
This
travesty.
is Kevin O'Connell. So Kevin
Oh
O'Connell
my
did a great
god.
job with the Vikings, and they took a team that was supposed to be a 6 or 7 win team to 14. That's awesome. You know, that is a great. Any other time, I would say, yeah, you won 14 games with Sam Darnold. That's a hell of a coaching job. But what Dan Campbell did and what the Lions did, we were expected to win 13 games and we won 15. So we overachieved, but we did that having 18 guys on IR just on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, when you look at the other rosters, you look at what would Minnesota record have been if they had their 18 defensive players, including their best by far best player on their defense, go away for that. I mean, what we did, I think, the argument is, oh, the Lions were expected to do good. We were supposed to be Super Bowl, candidates. And so this was not a surprise, but I think just the context of losing the guys that we did and to continue to win over and over and over again. I just can't see anybody other than Dan Campbell having, won this legitimately. Like I just can't fathom it.
Yeah, I think what ended up happening and the reason that O'Connell won, and like I think that he's a really good coach. I really do. No shade as far as Kevin O'Connell being
Oh
a
no.
coach is concerned. However, his team had Sam Darnold to start the year, and what's up, LM? And Sam Darnold had never done anything like this in a full season in the NFL. So the fact that they did it, I think, is the narrative that won Kevin O'Connell the head coach the coach of the year award.
Yeah.
I think what's ridiculous about this is that Dan Campbell beat Kevin O'Connell head to head twice.
Yeah.
This season,
With
and it's like,
depleted teams.
yeah, and like I think it was the second game, the announcers and the content, like the NFL media heads that I listened to, were like, Kevin O'Connell was so thoroughly outcoached in this game that I don't know anything they could have done on the field to have made it matter. Even if you want to give some of that to Ben or Aaron Glenn or whatever, sure, great. Like they're the ones calling the plays. But like it's not assistant coach of the year,
Right.
And so I don't get it. I don't get it. Like to me,
Yeah.
if Dan Campbell doesn't win for this year, what does he have to do to win it? Go
Yeah, he didn't win it
17-0?
last year because he had a similar story, right?
Right.
We were bad. We started out 1-6, almost, well, actually that was 2 years ago, but last year we won our division for the first time. If the story didn't work last year, why is the story being the thing that gets Kevin O'Connell at this year?
I don't know.
Yeah, and anybody, I hear that a lot. Well, oh, it's really about the, Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson. I'm like, okay, then, well, why is it that way for Campbell, but it's not the defensive coordinator in Minnesota? Like, why is Kevin O'Connell get all the praise and not the Kevin, the DC and the OC? Like that doesn't make sense. You can't just say, Dan's a product of his coordinators and not everybody else. Like he picked the coordinators, right? He's working with them every day.
Yes.
So yeah, it's super annoying. I don't know what it takes get to win anymore.
So I mean, I honestly think it's going to take 17-0 or 16-1 to just be like, so is this guy just got locked down? You know, he's got locked down, right? You got to give it to Campbell.
And Andy Reid did that. He almost went 17-0. And he was 4th place in voting.
So I think with Andy Reid, it's voter fatigue. Like, oh, guys,
Yeah.
we get it. He's really good.
Yeah. It's like Lamar, right? That's
So,
probably
you
why
know,
Lamar
like,
didn't get it this year.
right. So, like, just, I mean, so it's like Giannis Antetokounmpo or like Nikola Jokic in the NBA. Like, one of those two guys should probably get it every year. And for a while they did. And then it was like, well, Giannis is having a better season than he did last year when he won the MVP. Why isn't he going to get the MVP this year?
Yeah.
And people are like, well, we're sick of voting for him. You know, and like, I think to some degree, in Andy Reid's case, like that's the problem is that
he's the best coach in the
done
NFL.
it before.
People know it, and therefore the bar's raised so high.
Yep.
You can't climb over the bar enough to get the votes.
Right. So I think this is of all the stuff on here, these awards, which don't matter really. They matter for like incentive bonuses and contracts and bragging rights. This is the only one that concerns me.
Legacy. Yeah.
So Dan Campbell is my coach of the year. And
yes.
Detroit versus everybody as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. And the reason why the assistant coach of the year isn't also a travesty is because Ben actually won it.
Correct. Yeah.
So I think it was very clear that he should have been the guy anyway. You know, to be honest, Aaron Glenn would have, give him a run from his money as a assistant coach of the year too.
He had a little more to overcome. He had a little bit harder chance. That's still he was a little bit steeper. I think. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I do think like it's stuff like this. Is Ben undeserving? No. But like, do I think that Aaron Glenn had a tougher job with what he had to work with? Yup. You know, and they're on the same team. So
yeah.
I just don't get it. So whatever. I mean, like they're not. I don't have a vote. They're not asking me, to throw my name on these records forever or whatever. So it's fine.
Yeah.
But like I did think that it was bullshit that Dan Campbell didn't win this award.
Yeah. So. Definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
So you and I were talking about the other day, yesterday, I think it was, about the awards and how they don't necessarily represent what we think they should represent.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. I'm going to see if I can share my screen here. So I kind of came up with new NFL awards that they should be. We talked about MVP is always the quarterback. Well, maybe there should be a quarterback of the year. And MVP could be changed to MDP, most dominant player of the year. That just like outstanding, holy shit, that's what you did. I can't believe it kind of guy. So what are your thoughts on, I mean, obviously none of these are going to happen, but like, who would your MDP be for this past year? And so this could be like back in the Aaron Donald days, it'd probably be him half the time because he was just like, oh my God. So we're talking offensive linemen, defensive linemen, safeties, punters. I don't really care. Like who has been just that, oh my God, I can't believe you played that well this year.
I would probably give it to somebody like Jordan Mailata, to be honest. Like the guy is just ridiculous. 360 pounds, moves like he does. They have some kind of international development program where guys from other countries can come over and like train to be NFL players. He was a part of that. Like he was a 7th round pick. No one ever expected anything out of him. The dude becomes the best left tackle, arguably, in the NFL. Has a great year. So I guess I will say Jordan Mailata. But I mean, it's a real the terms valuable, dominant, I think are broad enough to have a lot of like personal bias leak in. So like Zako's got Jamar Chase, right? He won the Triple
Won the
Crown.
Triple Crown. Yeah.
We've got 2 Triple Crown winners in like 5 years here. We hadn't had one forever. And now, now people are winning it. And like there's a real case, I think, that somebody like Jamar Chase could be like, this guy this year is pretty much untouchable. If you're talking about, I have to line up across from this guy one-on-one on this play, there may not have been another wide receiver in the entire NFL you wanted in that situation more than Jamar Chase. So is that what dominant is? Sounds close. Like he put up stats, or whatever, and I've heard that his asking price on his extension is $40 million a year.
That's close to $10 million more than the next guy.
Yeah, so I think Justin Jefferson's got 34 currently.
Is it 34? Okay, so still $6 million.
So a $6 million jump is nuts.
Yeah, that's almost 20%.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Wow.
But like you get to ask for 40 if you're dominant. If you put him on the Giants, is he the same guy? I don't think so. So like you're sitting, like this is the problem
in that, right?
Right. So this is the problem with these valuable or dominant type ideas, is that like almost all the time you have to factor in the fact that like, well, he's playing with Joe Burrow. Like that's gotta count for something, like Joe Burrow can get him the ball anywhere on the field, whenever he wants to. So pretty good, and like he has to catch it. Like that's the other half of it. Like I watched in the Super Bowl, I watched DeAndre Hopkins just straight up drop a ball where there was no one around him for 5 yards. And I was like, oh, you guys probably could have used that. You guys haven't had a lot of first downs in this game.
Yeah.
And
that dude has probably only dropped the ball 20 times in his 20-year career, too. Yeah. Like, he has got such sure hands.
Yeah, and it was just like, oh, this is how this is going to be, or whatever. So, like, I tend to think about players in these kinds of conversations, if I could give it to them, that don't have a way to ever be considered for these awards.
Yeah.
So, like...
And that's why I added things like offensive lineman of the year, defensive lineman of the year. Like, I'd love to have those. And offensive player of the year, I just kind of changed to offensive performance of the year. It's probably about the same. But I feel like that will celebrate things like the Triple Crown more than offensive player of the year. Because a lot of times that could be a quarterback. That could be... someone threw for 5,000 yards this year. That would be that guy, even if they didn't win MVP or MDP in this case. But like Saquon Barkley, if he almost broke the rushing record. To me, that would be offensive performance of the year, quality kind of stuff. So I kind of made some weird ones like that. Who would your offensive lineman? Would it be Mailata then? Your offensive lineman of the year?
Well, since I said him for the other thing, I'll say Penei Sewell. Like, Penei Sewell, for whatever reason, like he doesn't score the highest PFF grade, it seems like, or like when talking heads talk about like you need a left tackle and a right tackle, Trent Williams is usually the left tackle they talk about, and then for whatever reason it's the fucking dude from like the Bucks, Tristan Wirfs or somebody that they give it as the other tackle, and I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, how about representing for my boy Penei Sewell? The dude's like 19 years old still somehow.
Yeah.
And like, he can do things from a tackle perspective that like no one else in the NFL can do. Like no one pulls their right tackle like they pull Penei Sewell. I mean, so like he is so unbelievably athletic for his size and for what they're asking him to do, that like I don't think that he's really given the appreciation that he deserves for how he impacts what the Detroit Lions actually do. and how
Yeah.
they actually function. I think if
Yeah.
we knew what the coaches knew, we'd be shocked.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to watch that guy every day.
Oh man. You know, and like I think about like you know, we've got Hutch, you know, and like maybe if they go heavy into like an edge rusher class in the draft this year, like those guys practice against Taylor Decker, and Penny Sewell every week
Yeah.
in
That's how you
practice.
get better, right? You
That has
play.
to matter, right? And
Yeah.
like you're making everybody around you better with your greatness.
Iron sharpens iron kind of thing,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Who would your defensive lineman of the year?
I'm gonna have to think about this. I hate his guts. I can't say it. I can't get, you know, here's what I'll do.
They're gonna go Jalen Carter.
I love Jalen Carter. I think Jalen Carter is fantastic. I'm going to give it to Cam Hayward. He's
Yeah.
a he and this is basically like a lifetime achievement award as far as I'm concerned. Like Cam Hayward has been so good at what the Pittsburgh Steelers want Cam Hayward to do week in, week out, year in, year out, that to me, I just got to be like, he went to Ohio State, and I have to respect him.
Yeah.
You know, like this
Right.
guy has just
That's
been
tough
an
to do
absolute.
sometimes.
It is really hard to do for me sometimes, but like the guy has just been great. You know, and like you could talk about T.J. Watt, Nick Bosa, certainly Aaron Donald when he was in the league. Chris Jones in Kansas City.
Yep.
You know, every one of these guys is capable of having a year that just knocks the socks off the rest of the league. And like Aiden might be getting close to being in that discussion. If like he picks up where he left off and he's just maintaining that same pace like the whole year, then he's in that group. So, and
Yeah.
I dearly hope that he is that guy. It's hard to be that guy.
Yeah.
But like just the level of greatness that Cam Hayward has played with his entire career, I just want to throw his name out because of how good he really is, and
Yeah.
no one appreciates that shit unless you're a fan of that team. So I'm just gonna throw it to Cam Hayward because that dude, in my opinion, just like straight up earned it.
Yeah. No, I like that. I'd be up with that. Defensive performance. We kind of talked about offensive performance, probably being a Jamar Chase, or Saquon Barkley. Were there any other offensive performance of the year type of candidates?
I'll tell you one thing. Performance to me almost looks like a singular thing as opposed to like a yearly award. So from that context, let me say it like this: Garrett Wilson is now the player in the NFL who will have the best catch every year. He has
Dude's
he has
amazing.
the sickest catches. This guy, like, in their early, like he had like 2 years ago, like he's fighting off like I can't remember who it was. It was like a noteworthy corner, but he's fighting him off with this, and like his hand is like backwards, and he tips the ball to himself and catches it in the end zone one-handed. I thought that was amazing. One of the greatest things I've ever seen. And then this year he does the Michael Jordan like Nike pose, Air Jordan pose, and gets his feet in like week 3, so no one remembers it or whatever.
Right.
But like
Yeah.
his ability to do those things, even if it is only once a year, to me is like you have got a guy here that like can do things that literally nobody else in the NFL can. So I'll say Garrett Wilson for the ability to just be like, what did I just see again and again and again?
So head coach of the year to me should be who did the best job, not the best story. So I kind of added a most overachieving team of the year for the Kevin O'Connells of the world and the Brian Dabbles of the world, right? Like to me, I think either Dan Quinn in Washington or Kevin O'Connell, those are the two like neck and neck front runners for most overachieving team of the year. And especially if we're having these be regular season awards and not playoffs, you go Minnesota. If you go playoffs, you're like, well, Washington, right?
Right.
That's where they just achieved even more. Um, do you have any other most overachieving teams that we should consider outside of those two? Denver, maybe. Like I can see
Well,
them being I don't know.
Denver, I think, is certainly worthy of an inclusion. I'm looking at the teams in the NFL right now. So, like, I think that the Chargers had something like a 5 or 6 win jump year to year. The Cardinals never get any love. Um, Outside of that, I'll go with Denver. I think Denver's a
Yeah,
good one. Yeah, like I don't think a lot of people were like, "Oh, you took the sixth QB in the first round and started the rookie, and then you lost out in the playoffs because of a tiebreaker." Like that's more than you were expected to get.
yeah,
Like you guys are doing something right up there. So
yeah. I can get by with that. I think I would probably pick Minnesota just because 14 wins and having the most wins for someone that didn't win their division in NFL history, and you did that with Sam Darnold, is about as almost as overachieving as you can get.
yeah,
But I think Denver and Washington are both pretty pretty reasonable answers to that.
yeah,
And then the last one that I kind of came up with was so you got your offensive rookie of the year, you got your defensive rookie of the year. This year was Jaden Daniels, it was Jared Verse. Um, Jaden was taken number 2 overall. Verse was I think 15. I want to celebrate that rookie of the year where they were like compared to their draft position, they were freaking amazing. So your Amon-Ra St. Browns, right? Puka Nakua was a third or fourth round draft choice and was a fifth round draft choice and was like he was up for rookie of the year. Probably should have won it. It would have if it wasn't a quarterback he was going up against, right? Like those are the kind of guys I want to, if you're drafted 1, 2, 5, whatever overall, you're expected to do pretty damn good. But if you're that third, fourth, fifth round guy, the expectation isn't there. And when you do that, I want to celebrate that. Who was your like? And I know we didn't prep this at all, so I'm not sure if you've even thought about this. But like, who would be your most overachieving rookie of the year performance for this year?
So I'm doing a quick scan.
Yeah, I
There's a
should have
couple of
prepped a little bit before this, so you had something to
there's a
think
couple
about
of
beforehand.
guys. I think there's a couple of guys. So I'll just hit a couple of guys really quick.
Yeah.
Let's see. So I think the wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU, who went to the Jacksonville Jaguars, came in. There were questions about him, whether or not he had the route tree in order to live in the NFL, and the dude was nothing but great, and is now the very clear number one target in Jacksonville. And he
Yeah.
took that shit away immediately. He came in and was great immediately. So I think that was not expected. So I'll throw his name out there. Lad McConkey is the slot receiver for the Chargers. He had the kind of season that I expected, a slot receiver who could get open like an Amon-Ra St. Brown. With Justin Herbert, I think he had 100 catches for a second round pick. That's not too bad. Bo Nix, we talked about him. I think he really earned it. And the last guy I'll throw in there, and I hate to do this because he plays for the Packers, is Edgerrin Cooper, their inside linebacker that they drafted. He basically kicked quite. You remember the dude that like leaned over and like hit and then pushed our coach?
Oh
The
yeah.
That's Quay Walker. And like Edgerrin James came in and basically took his job away from him. So like not that hard to do. The dude sucks. But like Edgerrin is it not Edgerrin James? That's a running back.
He
Edgerrin
was really good too.
Cooper. Yeah.
Cooper.
Edgerrin Cooper played like a demon the whole season and like has very clearly established himself as not only a starter but like a higher level inside linebacker from a very young age
Yeah.
in the league. And so like I'll just throw a little love like those players' ways because if you knew how they were going to play, they all would have been much higher draft picks.
Yeah, I like that. Xavier Worthy, I think he was first round, right? But he was at the very end of the first round
Yep.
of the Chiefs.
Yep.
He played really well. Um, I'm trying to think of some of the other guys. I thought about this earlier, and then it just half the names like left my brain. Um, Jordan Whittington, the wide receiver from LA. He really only played sparingly, but he played really well. He was a sixth round draft choice. Um, trying to, did we have any standouts this year that were later round draft choices that not that I think Rodrigo, granted he was a couple years ago, but like I'm not sure Rodrigo would ever make this kind of a top five, award nomination kind of thing. But do we have any of those kind of standouts?
So we drafted Terrian Arnold, Ennis Rakestraw, Savoni Vaki, Giovanni Manu, Christian Mahogany.
So probably not then.
So, and I thought that I thought Terrian Arnold got better as the season went on, but
Yes.
I don't know that he's had the rookie season that like some of the other guys I mentioned who were just came in and were great.
Yeah.
Um, I certainly feel like this year the Lions class is like a class that's going to have to you're going to have to put this pot in the ground, this flower in the ground and let it bloom maybe a little bit longer than you're used to. Yeah, he had a good year.
Yeah.
No problem with Braden.
Yeah. He was rookie of the year candidate.
Western Michigan, you know.
Yeah.
So, um, Rakestraw was hurt. I think we'll end up seeing him play next year. Vaki was a good special teamer, but you're not going to hand out this kind of award to a special teamer. Manu is a Geo is a developmental guy. Mahogany is the guy that if you were going to be like, oh, who's in their first contract who really stuck out, I think Mahogany will end up being a worthwhile. This guy fell to the 6th round. What?
Yeah.
Kind of a guy. So, but he's not. He's just not there yet.
What about Cooper DeJean?
So Cooper DeJean, the only thing that prevented Cooper DeJean from being a higher pick were two things. That no one really knew where they were going to play him.
Right.
Is he a slot? Is he a safety? Is he a corner? Mm-hmm. And then he has the same problem that Brian Branch had, which was he ran in the 4.5s. Doesn't look like it was a problem. We got to get over this. Brian Branch is a good football player. He happened to run a 4.5. Cooper DeJean is a good football player. He happened to run a 4.5. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're not asking him to chase down someone on a 9 route. It doesn't matter. It's like your short shuttle, your lateral quickness. Can you stay with someone in the first 10 or 15 yards? He can do that. So I think that he dropped from lack of imagination as to how this guy could help you. The same reason that Kyle Hamilton dropped.
Yeah.
When it comes to
everybody
dudes
was saying that he was going to be potentially the most athletic player, Hamilton, that is, in the draft, and he went what 15th,
something like that. Yeah. So I mean, here's the thing that everyone should do, whether it's Cooper DeJean, Brian Branch, Kyle Hamilton. If you like the way the guy looks on tape, you just draft him and you play him at nickel, and you figure that shit out later. So you don't have to do this and be like, "Oh, that's a really good football player. I'm going to play him at nickel. Neat. So I can take him here.
Yeah.
I can take DeJean in the first round. I wanted to draft Brian Branch at 18.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, who are they going to take? Brian Branch. It's got to be Brian Branch. I turned in Brian Branch on my little ticket or whatever that we would do for our betting. And they were Jack Campbell. He's not Brian Branch. That's a different guy. You get Brian Branch.
They're going to pop my balloon twice.
They really draft. Did. Oh, man. I learned a lot from that draft, though. I learned a lot from that draft. So I'm glad that they did it. So, but yeah, a guy like a Cooper DeJean, Kyle Hamilton, or any of these positionless football players, the problem isn't, are they good football players? The problem is, where do I put this guy so he's the most effective in the NFL?
Right.
And that's the lack of imagination or understanding or having a plan that coaches have for these kinds of guys when they're projections. Oh, I get him in
Yeah.
camp. I see him in the, they get to interview them a couple times. It's not like you get to go to a week's worth of practice with the guy, so it's a guessing game. And like, I think that people are a little gun shy when it comes to safety / nickel corners, and they drop, and great, because we got one of them.
Yeah.
And so did the Eagles, and so did the Ravens, and like next year it'll be somebody else that gets a really good football player in the middle of the second round who should have gone top 20. They're talking about this year, they're talking about this kid out of Georgia, Malachi Starks.
Yep.
I'm doing like a composite ranking of like 6 different like football websites that I respect, and they all have Malachi Starks as the top 10 pick. Well, there's one guy that's like, this is like the 30th best player in the class. So if the NFL thinks that way, and like Malachi Starks is there like in the mid-20s, I would go get him if I was Brad Holmes. And then I would just push Branch to nickel closer to the line. And because he is a bigger Brian Branch. So, I mean, let's just run 3 safeties. Yeah.
All right, man. Anything else that we wanted to cover before we head off into the sunset for another week?
So we will officially not have any more football games to talk about this point until September.
Yep.
So I wanted to start off next week. Well, let's do like a little, let's just give them like a little bit like what we're thinking about doing for some content.
Yeah.
Coming up here. So I want to go through draft philosophies, best player available, draft for need, positional value, yada, what you see on tape, yada yada yada, and push this narrative that they're all different parts of the same thing. They're not individual things that GMs adhere to. I want to do that as a discussion point here in the near future. We are going to do a 2-round guest mock draft in the near future. So it's going to be one more round than normal, and we would like to get Mike, myself, and 6 other people to have at least one person to do a division in the NFL. And so this year we're looking at doing 2 of them, one right before the draft when we have the most information, and one in the near future, maybe right after the combine or something.
Right.
So
before free agency hits and everything goes crazy.
Yeah. So if you want to be considered for that, go out and get a couple people to subscribe to our channel and then let us know that you did it.
Right.
And we'll just hold a ransom for some of these spots. But in all seriousness, like if you think that you've got something to consider and to offer and you want to do that, like reach out to us, leave a note in the comments,
throw a comment out there. Yep.
Yeah. Join our Discord channel. Let us know that kind of thing, or get in the chat at some point and let us know you're interested in one of our shows. So those are all things we got coming up. But if you guys have stuff that you'd like us to talk about, not the Myles Garrett trade anymore, since I made people
not until it happens.
Yeah,
it's tabled. We're gonna put a pin in that until something happens, and then we'll unpin it and
unpin it, and the floodgates open. The ship sinks or whatever. So so if you guys have something you want us to talk about, let us know. Put it in the chat. Put it in the comments. Send us a tweet. I don't know.
All right, Drew. It's always fun talking Lions. The offseason is now officially in full swing. We didn't even talk about it. We're not going to. We'll talk about it more next week. But the draft order is officially in place, right? So we know who's drafting 1 through 32. So we'll talk probably more about that next week as we kind of talk about different draft philosophies and how they intermingle and which teams tend to do which ones, and at what points in their build. So but other than that, man, I'll catch you guys next Tuesday.
Sounds good.
All right, see you guys.